So you're telling me the Earth isn't flat, but it's also not round, but it's rather an entire room. This is a review of Colossal, the solo RPG adventure. Let's dive in. Now, when I decided to take a little break from the YouTube, I explored the possibility of playing a solo D&D 5e game. I had the world maps all set, I had 2 characters I played build, and I had my resources. And then I got to playing, and, well, there's a reason why I'm not so much of a D&D fan anymore, and I only played like 2 sessions. Needless to say, I think I am making some improvement on my D&D slump. I mean, I might even make it through like a full adventure someday instead of 2 sessions. And it just so happened that I heard about Colossal. But what is it, and why am I excited to play this game as a solo experience? Well, let's take a look at the back and see what this actually is. So, welcome to the world of Colossal. Prepare to get lost in a world of your own imagination, steered by the rules within this book. This is a solo role-playing game, a game you can play by yourself. Write your character's journal as they explore the strange lands of Colossal, a castle so colossal that fields, valleys, mountains, and even oceans rest within its rooms. Discover 4 incredible character classes and a simple rule set. All you need to embark on the grand adventure is a pen, paper, and a deck of playing cards. Play it alone with the rules in this book, or use the world of Colossal and the classes as the setting for your next multiplayer RPG adventure. But although the rooms of the Colossal are inviting, beware the Rooks, strange lumbering stone automatons that patrol and guard the world's mysteries. What will you discover as you venture deep into the Colossal? And so we have Colossal, the solo RPG adventure. Really like the inside cover, by the way. There aren't really any maps. Like, I think there's 1 map in this entirety of this book, and there really isn't a whole lot of information to display on the front cover, but I do admire the fact that they did include some of the artwork on the front and the end covers. So this is written and illustrated by, I think, Nick Angel? I don't know, I'm kind of going off of Hot Fuzz here. In 2020, I believe this was originally published. This is the hardback 3rd edition, which came out in January 2022. So I'm pretty late to the game on this one, but that's okay. The contents of this book can be separated into 3 different categories. First, you have your characters and how to build them. You have exploration, and then you have the combat rules. We'll not count the introduction because, I mean, it's more or less the same as any introduction section that you're going to find. So let's start with character creation. So a starting character really needs 4 things in order to get going. You need a calling, a nature, a class, and then a weapon. Okay, and this entire chapter or section will kind of get you on your way. And creating a character for Colossal is like really super easy. First is your calling. Since everything here uses a deck of cards, you're just going to draw either a card, you can pick from the list, or you could come up with your own. And you kind of just go with that. So you have your calling, you know, the thing that your big overall quest, so to speak. And then you have your nature, mainly your personality. You can draw a card, or you could pick, or choose your own. Kind of like how I like to run my things here. And then we get to choose our class. And there are 4 different classes to choose from. And each class has an exploration score and then a combat score. And this really determines how many cards you draw on that specific phase. So the 4 different classes that we have are the Armed. The Armed quite literally have an arm from a rook connected to them via a complex ritual, attuning its intention to them. The Armed are proficient in melee combat and are highly capable adventurers. They are warriors. An armed adventurer could have any type of arm: a blade, a hand, a cannon, a strange machine the user doesn't yet understand. If the arm has a hand or the ability to hold items, it can be used to carry an additional weapon, if you have one. And then, of course, you have some of the class traits, you know, things that are kind of common amongst all armed characters. And then you have other things to kind of further flesh out your background. Then we have the Followed, with an exploration score of 5 and a combat score of 3. The Followed have a small rook companion, like a pet or familiar that follows them in their commands. These rooklings are found in the cores of larger rooks. As yet, it is not known why. They display a base level of sentience akin to that of a dog or a cat, and can form deep and personal bonds with their human companions. The Followed are excellent rangers, pathfinders, and navigators. Then we have the Helmed, with an exploration score of 2 and a combat score of 5. The Helmed harvests a piece of strange machinery from the very core of a rook, and, using rituals and a real working understanding of the crystal patterns in stones, they are able to create a helm that can be worn and operated, granting them the magical abilities of the rook it was harvested from. And then last but not least, we have the Mounted, with an exploration score of 5 and a combat score of 2. The Mounted ride an adapted mechanism taken from rook parts, as a vehicle or mount to allow them easier traversal across the land and sea of the Colostle. Typically, this involves taking a part of the rook responsible for its locomotion and disconnecting it from the main body, and turning it into something that can be operated with crude controls, mechanisms, and levers. The Mounted's mount can vary from horse-like creatures to boats and even bikes. So, unlike most fantasy settings, your human character doesn't really get to wield magical spells and whatnot. The closest thing would be the actual Helmed class. Rooks, these giant castle mechs that roam the rooms of the Colossal, come in 3 different elements. You have electric, rumble, and ice. Although these are simply put there for flavorings. Then again, it's kind of your world and your journal. So if you want each of the different types of rooks to have some sort of a status effect whenever they hit your character with something, that's kind of your thing. And this book really does nail in to your head that, hey, this is your type of game. You do what you want with it. The rules are just there to be there for lightness, but you do you. So then we have the exploration rules. The rules for exploration are actually quite simple. You draw an amount of cards equal to the exploration score of your character and make sense of them. Remember, this is a journal game, so it's up to you to figure out how all these pieces go together. And like with any solo game engine, there are plenty of tables that give you prompts. The city building prompts right over here are particularly interesting because each of the city will always have 4 buildings. It'll always have the Hunters Guild, a tavern, a merchant, and a housing district. But then what you do with that is you take those 4 starting cards and arrange them in any order that you want, so long as the cards are touching. And then you draw 4 new cards, and then you lay them out in any kind of a layout, so long as the cards are touching. So you're kind of like building a city with the cards that you're drawing. And there are different things that you can actually put into the city, like a palace grounds, lapidarist, rooksmith, a cartographer, weaponsmith, arms dealer, rookling crochet, gourmet district, and things like that. But each of the 4 main buildings actually have their own unique traits that give your characters certain bonuses by visiting that city. So the 4 main buildings are the Hunters Guild. And the Hunters Guild allows you to take quests and turn them in for treasure, which is basically the currency of this game. There's the Housing District, which allows you to purchase a house, and it kind of acts like a fast travel when you're out exploring. And it also allows you to heal up to your starting score, exploration and combat scores. The tavern gives you +1 benefit to either combat or exploration if you spend the night there. And then the merchant district, or the merchant building, allows you to buy items that are for sale. And if there were any complaints that I would have with this book or this game, it would be how items work, or rather, how many items there actually are. There's only about 8 items I'm counting on this page alone. Yeah, that's not a whole lot, but Again, this is only one book, and there's the Patreon page, which if you subscribe to their Patreon, you get a lot more stuff, like other Rooks and new mechanics, and I'm hoping items. But there's also another book called the Roomlands, which expands on some of the stuff that's in this book as well, and the mechanics therein. And so you can go to a city, you could visit those places and then move on, and then if you buy a house, you could fast travel from your quest location back to your house and heal up and stuff like that. It's a really neat mechanic, and you know, when you're journaling out things, you're probably going to skip those little details like traveling back. It just really doesn't matter a whole lot. Then you have the battlements, which is the last part of this section, and it serves as the end game. It has its own encounter table and the like, and I personally have not read through this section, mainly because I've not gotten this far in my adventure. So we don't read this section until your character has reached the battlements in their adventure. So this is pretty much like the last thing, or a major stepping point for your character's journey, is reaching this area. And then we have the combat rules. Much like the exploration phase, combat is very similar. You're fighting an enemy, be it a rook or human. You draw an amount of cards equal to your current combat score. However, your opponent also gets to draw cards because they also have a combat score. So step number 1, we draw an amount of cards equal to our combat score and we place them up front where we can see. Step 2, we check to see what your opponent's combat score is. So if they are human, they get 1 combat score. If they're a medium rook, it's 3 combat score. And if it's a massive rook, they get 5 combat scores. Step 3, we draw a card for the opponent and we place it face up. In order to counter your opponent's attack and make sure that we don't get hurt, you'll need to allocate one of your cards. If your card's number is higher, you successfully counter or avoid their attack. If you're forced to choose a number that's lower than the one that's on the table, you get 1 wound. And you basically lower either your exploration score or your combat score by 1. If either of those scores reaches 0, you are defeated, aka dead. And then step number 4 is we repeat steps 1 through 3 any number of times until you draw your opponent's combat score. Of course, you have things like critical hits and clashes, so like if you have 2 of the same number and things like that. And it's really, really interesting. I've never played a game that is card-based like this. I mean, the closest I would have gotten to was Alien with its initiative system, and I just did something else entirely. But this is actually very interesting. I like its uniqueness. I've not really played enough of it yet to gather any opinions that sway me one way or the other. But I do find it interesting. For a game that's very rules light like this, it serves its purpose, and I appreciate that. Overall, I think Colossal is a neat piece of work. The artwork is interesting, and so was the world. I can actually see myself taking the concept of this unique world and applying it to another game system. As a journaling experience, I think it holds up rather well, but I've also learned that you're going to have to take liberties, with the whole experience. You have to take the cards that you're dealt with and work with that and be creative. And if you're coming to this from a game where you have certain rules for everything and that's what you've kind of come to expect from an RPG experience, you may or may not like this. It's really asking you as a journalist to kind of fill in the pieces to make it something unique for you that works for you. The rules are very light, but they also work as a whole package for the beginner. And I say beginner not in the sense like a newbie like I am in the journaling experience, but rather to the beginning to that experience, because the second book, The Roomlands, actually expands on several concepts and adds some optional features. And then, of course, you have all the stuff that's on their Patreon page. If you subscribe to that, you can get a lot more cool stuff, which is actually pretty neat. Like the book mentions many times throughout, this is your game, your world, and it's up to you to do with it as you see fit. So don't be afraid to get creative at times. I would certainly recommend this for anyone who enjoys journaling or just wants a very unique exercise in the creative process. I really do enjoy this. I like just sitting in this room with my candle and my journal, which is over there. I can't even reach it. And just kind of having some nice soft music playing as I flip those cards over, and then I interpreted it like some sort of a tarot reader, and just kind of write. And that's the whole experience. That's what the experience is for me. That's what I enjoy about it. So feel free to leave a comment down below. Give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.